No matter what factors are out in the world, we can always make sure to connect using the digital space.
Exactly, and we here at No Box Dance, as a digital dance company, want to continue connecting resources and people through the digital space. However, to address this time, we're really interested in talking about social distancing.
Yeah, so if you've been looking for resources, this is just a reminder that every Monday we offer Evolving Labs, which are resources, our digital archive that has physical and digital resources such as books, websites, databases. You can find it on social media or on our website.
Right. Every Wednesday, we release a new episode of Dance Beyond the Screen podcast. You can also find show notes on our website.
Also, we realize that the digital is not the only way to enjoy dance, but it's a way to bring people together. So our latest platform is the No Box Dance Short Series, NBSS, a digital dance short series that will premiere on No Box social media accounts to promote art making and artist connection via the digital space. So if you go to our website, go ahead and click on the orange tab.
Yeah, please enjoy our social distancing mini-series where we share short interviews with artists, scholars, and companies to help you through these trying times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can find the link to all these resources below. And we want to continue to help you make, share, and connect through the digital space. Don't forget,
say no to
the
box.
Today we have Liz Lerman with us. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
So during this pandemic, artists and pedagogues are trying to figure out different ways of how to shift things online. And we thought it'd be a great resource to have in this mini-series. Could you share with our listeners who are educators or artists how the Atlas of Creative Tools, originally the toolbox at Liz Lerman Dance Exchange, would be useful as they shift courses online?
Well, it's a funny story in a way because I'm not I was not familiar with online. It's not necessarily a place I would call home, but I absolutely saw in it and see in it that it's an extraordinary resource and that a mechanism for sharing and for getting information out. So when I was recruited to Arizona State University 3.5 years ago, one of the reasons I accepted the position is because that school, the school I am now a part of, has a commitment to online learning. And I brought with me this idea that we all have these amazing creative tools. I've been sort of an obsessive tool maker since not all artists like to think about their work in that way, but I have come to really like it. And so I was interested whether I could actually do interactive creative work online. I mean, could you actually do it?
Right.
And so made the Atlas of Creative Tools, and with the help of Herberger Online, which is a group of people working online education, we did a rough draft. So I have a course called The Fundamentals Atlas of Creative Tools, which is fully online, although I will acknowledge to you and everybody else that I prefer hybrid. That is to say, it's wonderful to have it online, but it's also wonderful to see people, but you can't always do both. So
right.
We are right now trying to make some of these resources available to people. I hope in the next few days, I'll be able to put some of the tools out for people to have access to. We've got to do some, flipping around to the platform and get ASU involved and all that. But I'm hoping they'll be out very soon.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell our audience what kind of tools, what resources would they find in there?
Yes. So it's called the Atlas of Creative Tools, with the idea that at least eventually there'll be neighborhoods, and there could be a neighborhood that's fully devoted to, say, dance composition classes. But this is right now, it's set up as a sequence of a lot of it growing out of my own art making, but ways of thinking about your creative life. So yes, we do embodiment. Yes, we do composition. Yes, we do all of that. But we also take on some big ideas about what does it mean to be creative. For example, when are we wide open, non-judgmental, and when do you actually have to be very focused and, very judgmental? And the idea of helping people practice that. Most people practice those things at the same time. They try to be open and they're being judgmental. And that's
right.
That's actually the way. And this class tries to help you isolate that and practice some of those things. Some of the tools are, everybody has a project and they apply the tools to that project. And some of those are art projects. but somebody used it to help her buy a house, and so
Wow.
people can have, we have people from different disciplines in the class. There's a lot of interest in the environmental sustainability world for using these kind of tools in that kind of education. So I'm excited about that. But for dance makers and people in our field, I think it will be really helpful. What I'm hoping when people can access it is that it consists of short little lectures from me and from John Borstel, who helped build the site, on creativity theory, but also these practices. I'm hoping that people use them as catalysts. They can just take it and put it out and give it to their students. And they could put it out and put their own ideas in relationship to it. And the students make stuff, and then they have to post it. And then there's a lot of discussion between the students. And that's something that I really want to talk about today, is that things I learned in going to online. It's, when you're in a composition class or we're in our studios, we have behaviors for giving feedback. And we also, we're kind of a communal group. We're used to that in dance. It's like, so if one person shows their work, we all get involved, but not everybody shows every week, for example. But when you're online and people are putting their work out, how do you get feedback? And from whom? How does that work? And is it all teacher to student? That doesn't work. So you have to set up these duos and trios and quartets where the students themselves get engaged with each other. And that's where critical response comes in, that there's a mechanism for giving and receiving feedback that the students can use. Otherwise, I think it's too hard for the teacher to just be one-on-one, and it's also not realistic, and it's not what we want. We want people with each other.
So that leads me into this next question. What are your thoughts about facilitating community during this time of physical separation?
Yeah. Well, we already see it happening, right? I mean, everybody has so much going on. People have, it's odd that I'm working on a new piece right now that involves something about extinction. And when I've been talking to extinction scientists, say that extinctions are times of extreme innovation. And you can see that happening the way people are sharing online right now, and people giving each other classes and stuff like that, which I think is pretty interesting. It's not the same. It's something. I think it's not what I'm finding. It's not a replica for what it's like when we are actually together and we get to touch each other. But there certainly are mechanisms that people are using to bring people together. And in my case, for example, my students right now, what was you didn't have to come. We would have an in-person class every other week. You didn't have. Now I'm on every week with everybody, and I'm really urging people to be in touch with me as much as possible. Just to make sure that we don't lose track of each other during this time.
Right. I feel that as a teacher, for myself, I know that I'm missing that face-to-face experience with them, and that, emotional connection that you create with them. How are you finding yourself creating that emotional affection with them?
Yeah. We've done some group classes, and I like being with the group, and I like, again, helping to foster their own connection with each other. So if one of them has a question, everybody can raise their hands on the Zoom session, and it's Zoom that we're using. But I also love my one-on-one times with people, and I'm finding in this period I need to do that more frequently. So, and I just was on yesterday with just a wonderful student, and she's got, I'm so brokenhearted for people who had all these performances. Our undergrads were ready for their undergrad show, and it's like, in fact, I propose we have, if we're back up in the fall, I propose we have a cancellation festival and have everything that was possibly can't just have a big festival, including graduation. I think we should just graduation, But in the meantime, I was talking to this beautiful young woman who has made an amazing piece with 7 women about how women feel about their bodies and how we occupy space. And now she's got to figure out how to do it. And we had a wonderful conversation about, I asked her, well, where would she like to see these things happen? And she realized that they could do it in the kitchen, or they could do it outside, or they could, that there's a way that she could create for, we had a wonderful exchange. But that's one-on-one.
Yeah.
And that feels to me essential, even like you and I are having right now.
Yeah. No, that's so great. And then also thank you for adding that idea of that cancellation party or that cancellation performance.
Yeah. No, I think it
That-
should be so we could do it all over the country. I think it could be endurance, 24, 48 hours. Everybody just everybody out showing. Da, da, da. Yeah. Yes, I was just thinking about it again. And then we could all walk to the stadium and everybody graduates.
Yeah. That sounds so lovely. I feel like that is something as a teacher, hearing you say that, I feel that's so nice. It's supporting. It's so supporting to think that way. And I feel that, for you to think that way, the students also have that type of support. So Liz, what advice do you have for performing artists, art organizations, or patrons about what's currently happened? If you could give them any advice.
Well, I don't know if I have advice, but what I've been thinking about is, for example, if somebody does have computers but somebody doesn't, and you're in a class, is to partner people up and make sure that everybody who has is in touch by phone with someone who doesn't, because the act of sharing is also an act of learning and discovering and teaching. And this idea that people can teach each other, as far as I'm concerned, say with the Atlas, as soon as somebody has just the basis idea of the tool, they ought to be sharing it with somebody else. And so, I on the one level, I feel like we should be, it's one-on-one and make sure everybody's attached. On the other big scale, I could imagine, we should convince Hulu or Netflix or somebody to be running an educational arm right now that lets all of this stuff move to a platform like that. And again, maybe people can share, or maybe they can get it through their television then or something like that, because I am concerned for the people who don't have, and I want to make sure that they have. But, I wrote something out and just posted it briefly on Facebook because I was getting all of this. The feed was full of people who were just so depressed about having to do their work online, and I get how freaky and awful and speedy and terrifying that is. But what I wrote about is that yes, I am in mourning for what I can't do with my online. I am, but that doesn't prevent me from seeing what amazing things also can happen online. Really amazing, really. So we have to hold both these things. Same with what our institutions are going to do. I mean, I have a full-time job at the university, for which I'm very grateful, but I also have a life. I'm making a new piece. I have an LLC. I do a lot of work external to the university. I support a lot. A lot of people are employed in the gig world through the work that I do. We lost a ton of work this spring, a ton. So, okay, it's gone. Maybe it will come back, maybe it won't. What are we starting to think about now to imagine the world we're entering? Because first of all, this thing isn't going away. And secondly, the systems that we're already breaking are going to be broken. So now what? What's, and in some ways I go back, I was thinking about the Atlas today. One of my ideas for the Atlas was, when things were healthy, was that if people had an artist in residence, if I could have a residency program in the Atlas, someone could come into the Atlas not to make new work, but to actually document the processes that they use, to come out of a 3-week residency with a set of an awareness of the processes that they have engaged in. Now I know not everybody wants to do that. People worry it's a recipe and all that. I don't find that to be the case. I find tools lead to abundance, not to reduction. So I would encourage this possibility of rethinking the way people might live and work. I mean, we have to. I'm not there yet. It's too early, but I'm thinking hard about what ways will artists be able to be active and purposeful with the knowledge that we have. And this is where the toolbox mentality is so useful. Because I know for example, a lot of my tools emerge because I'm making a new work.
Right.
Those tools don't only just work in a studio making a new work. It turns out that those things can be applied. Well, to somebody trying to buy a house, or to somebody trying to think their way out of a slump they're in, or whatever. So I'm thinking that artists realize the extraordinary amount of knowledge that we hold and how we can put it out there. I know the world doesn't want to accept it, but the world is changing too right now. So.
Wow, that was so great to hear. I have to say, I was starting to get a little bit of chills. You're so passionate about how you speak about these things. And I agree that, while we're still mourning this, we can think about how to move forward. And I think as pedagogues, that will help our students. And as artists, that will continue developing the way we form our art in different spaces.
I couldn't agree more, Reyna. And I think one of the things I told my students this week is, I have this little sample little lecture I'm going to try to put out today or tomorrow about what a toolbox mentality is. And it's like I can teach, what I talk about is I can teach you to swim. I'm not a good swimmer, but I can teach you how to slowly into the water and eventually, but I can throw you in the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do while you save yourself is the essential tools of knowing how to swim. And if people would just stay aware of what people are doing to save themselves right now, my students too, like, okay, you're going to have to put your final project in some way online. What are you doing? What is that? And whatever those things are, that's your toolbox. That's you. That's your amazing, intuitive, creative self surviving. And if you can name what you did, if you take the time to say to yourself, what did I just do? Why did I do? Then you have something to offer someone else when they're in that position. So that's what we're doing right now. It's that. And every single person is there are no experts right now. Aren't. Well, there may be people who are really familiar with the digital world, but beyond that, there are no experts. So everybody's saving themselves, and the stuff that's emerging, it's really valuable, I think.
I think that's very rich. That speaks to everything. So Liz, as we're ending our series documentation, how is there anything else that you'd really like to talk about? Because I could listen to you all day, honestly.
Thank you, Reyna, and you. So maybe we'll keep this going off.
Yeah, let's keep it. Yeah.
But I would say this. I have a concern, and the concern has to do with this acknowledgement that actually we're going to have to give each other commentary on the things that we put forward. We have certain behaviors online that aren't so good. In general, sometimes we get online, we do stuff that we wouldn't actually do in relation to each other. So I feel it doesn't have to be the critical response process, although critical response works really well online. And there's some people experimenting now with it on Instagram and, using it as a process to help people have protocols that hold you in relationship to your better values. If it doesn't have to be critical response, but I would urge people to set some protocols now, because people are going to be putting stuff out. Say you're in a composition class, it's unfinished work. It's one thing to stand up in a room and make something unfinished and show it. It's another thing to put it online where it's going to live forever.
Right.
About that, and so I just want to encourage everybody to think about what are the processes they're putting in place for feedback. And we're going to put something out about critical response in the next few days, and people are welcome to use it. I hope they do. But there are other ones too that will make a difference.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Liz. We would love to have you on our podcast for future, and where we continue this conversation if you'd like, which I would love. And so for our listeners, if you want more information about Liz, the Atlas Toolkit, just look at all of the information below, and it'll take you right into her website and all of that information. And so thank you.
Thank you, and have a good rest of the day.
You too. It was such a joy having you today, and I can't wait for everybody to hear what you had to say.
All right, and take care, everyone. All right.
All right.
Bye.